Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. Russian Urals crude, the country's main grade of oil sold on world markets, has fallen to its lowest price in more than 2.5 years, dropping to $36.6 a barrel, according to Bloomberg. Now, the slump comes as sanctions, shifting global demand, and reduced purchases from major buyers like India and China continue to reshape the energy market. Now, across Europe, countries are adjusting their strategies in response, including Ukraine, which is now importing U.S. LNG through Greece. Now, to help us break it down and understand what it all means, we're joined now by Sławomir Raszewski, Senior Oil and Gas Lecturer at the University of London. Good to have you back on TVP World.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with this price slump here. Russian Urals crude. This is significant. How much is this due to sanctions? Is this changing demand? Is it both? How do we analyze it? What does it mean for the energy markets?
I think we are in the midst of a major geopolitical confrontation between the US and Russia. And this is the major development at the moment, which is impacting the price of Urals oil. And also that's largely linked to the sanctions, the economic sanctions that have been imposed. Now, what it means, it doesn't mean that the oil is not finding its way to the market, but what it means is that the prices of oil have to go significantly down to attract potential buyers. So going forward, this has large implications for exporters of crude oil from Russia. The prices are going down and the revenues are going down.
Mm-hmm. So revenues are down. That obviously will have a direct correlation on how much Russia can spend. That will affect the war. So it means, this is, as you said, this is a shifting demand. This is a pushing by the United States. There's still a hint recently that Donald Trump has said even more, maybe secondary sanctions could follow. Could this price fall even lower? And how that's going to impact the markets?
Well, at the moment, the interesting situation is that the market is flooded with oil. So there is also the impact of the market development. So we have a lot of oil on the market. US is pumping at its highest. The latest information we have from the last quarter is that the US production of oil is 21.5 million barrels of oil per day. So this is unprecedented in the context of historical developments. We have never seen any country with such large volumes to be brought to the market. So what does it mean is that on top of the geopolitical confrontation with economic sanctions, we also have large quantities of oil on the market. US producers are trying to find a market share, and also this is impacting the attractiveness of crude oil going from other destinations, including Russia. So we have, if you like, a combined approach to tackling this issue. And I think that going forward, this will have. However, we also have to remember that it is not in the interest of everyone who produces oil for the prices to go down. So I believe that there has to be some sort of equilibrium here. And this might be, it has to stop at some point, and prices cannot tank too much. But at the moment, we have these two developments, the geopolitical development of economic sanctions and also the market development with high volumes of oil being produced at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And also, I'm curious, Sławomir, because you said a lot of that oil is being pumped out by the United States. They're really ramping it up. Let's talk about oil and also gas, so LNG. Now, I want to get your views on this new deal that was just inked recently, I think the last day or so, between Greece and Ukraine, moving a lot of that U.S. LNG through those pipelines into Ukraine. And also, just now, first of all, how significant is that? And secondly, with that attack of that LNG tanker, that Turkish tanker in Odessa, that also is a signal. So give us your take on both of these things.
Well, again, this is geopolitical, because what we are witnessing is an attempt to essentially change the supply chain, the traditional supply chains, into Eastern Europe. This discussion was in the past ongoing to shift the supply route from north to south, and then from south to north. In other words, using LNG facilities in the Mediterranean, in the agency, to supply natural gas onto the Central and Eastern Europe. I mean, it never materialized because of the pipelines that were built at the time, Nord Stream 1 and 2, effectively prevented such options. But at the moment, we are witnessing a quite unprecedented development where LNG from the US may find its way to the markets in Central and Eastern Europe. I mean, this is a very significant development, something which would never be anticipated only a few years ago. So this is something very big and potentially opening up alternative sources of supply to Central and Eastern Europe, something which has been discussed for probably 2 decades in Europe, but never materialized. So it's only now being materialized. So I think that there is a very important symbolic meaning of this development.
Mm-hmm. And also, let's stay with the region, or let's say southeastern Europe as well, the Balkans. There's some trouble for that NIS refinery, that Russian-owned refinery in Serbia. They seem to be running out also in terms of looking at how they operate. Serbia might want to step in to buy that. So how much of a, let's say, critical area is this? Are we going to see fuel shortages there? Are we going to see more of a regional cooperation because of the fact that Russia is selling this? Give us your take on how that's playing out in Serbia.
Well, Serbia has traditionally tried to balance their influences. So they've been trying to both balance the influence of Russia at the same time be close to Europe because of the geographical position of Serbia. But these developments may bring Serbia more closely to the European and US orbit. And indeed, this reminds us a bit of the developments that we've witnessed in the past few weeks in Bulgaria and Romania, where the asset had to be liquidated, it had to be sold. But of course, ultimately, the question is, who is going to be the buyer of these assets, and how is it going to play out? I mean, this is a loss for sure when it comes to the supply of oil. And, going forward, this probably plays into what I mentioned earlier on, the fact that long-term perspective doesn't look rosy for the suppliers of oil from Russia.
Mm-hmm. And also, I want to go back to what you said earlier, this unprecedented cooperation. We're talking about that pipeline, the LNG coming from the U.S. through Greece to Ukraine. Could this be, in your mind, some kind of, let's say, pattern of other collaboration across the region? And we're looking at even Poland. There's another LNG terminal being finished off of the shoreline by Gdańsk in the north of the country. Could this also serve as another hub? Could we see something similar here on energy cooperation?
Absolutely, and I think that Poland was really the early adopter of LNG. If you look back, Poland has never really had much of energy, natural gas demand. If you compare with Germany, Germany was the major importer of pipeline gas from Russia, but never diversified away from pipeline gas into LNG. Poland, in the contrary, from the beginning, started adopting this, if you like, diversified supply business model in which LNG terminal in Świnoujście was brought online to enable supplies. The same goes for Lithuania, even though Lithuania's demand was quite small in comparison to Polish demand for natural gas. Did exactly the same. So essentially, diversification has always been the essence of energy security in this part of the world. And indeed, I believe that this is part of this geopolitical confrontation that we are witnessing, which probably is linked to personal animosity that has emerged recently between the President of the United States and the Russian president. And I think that's the response, that's this geopolitical response. But as I said, it's not just geopolitical response, it's also the market response. The market needs this gas, the market needs this oil, and this oil and gas will eventually find its way to Eastern Europe. There's also the third element, which I haven't mentioned. Well, let's not forget that this goes kind of against the logic of the European Union, if you like, Western European-led energy policy, energy and climate policy, because over the past few years, it's been aggressively shifting away from energy security and affordability towards environmental sustainability. So if you like, I think that these developments are putting a wedge between Europe and Russia, Western Europe and Russia, and I think that creating new developments where diversification is really key and affordability is key.
Sorry, I just want to ask you one really quick one. I'm conscious of the time, 30 seconds. We did oil and gas. Let's do nuclear for a minute. Enriched uranium is still being sent, according to Greenpeace, still from France to Russia. I mean, it's legal at this point, but how moral is it? How do you see this play out? Just a quick comment before we close.
It's a complex issue. Obviously, Russia is a major producer of nuclear energy, major producer of the equipment, major producer of technology. So I think this is likely to continue, but at the moment it's ongoing.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's one of those things, though, that impact France and Europe's credibility, however. So we'll see how it goes on in nuclear. And I think also that trade with Russia is still something that needs to be put under more scrutiny. Look, we'll close it there. Wonderful, energetic discussion, if I may say so. Thank you so much, as always, Sławomir Raszewski there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sascha, for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks. But stay right here. Much more coming up on TVP World, so don't go away.